Good afternoon. We're here today with Mark Twist, and we're going down memory lane again, but this time we're going all the way back to 1957. Mark has an extensive history with the church, Niles Discovery, way before it was Niles Discovery. So I am going to let Mark take over and give us the history from all the way back in 1957, bring us from there all the way up to date, Mark.
I date way back. I'm a longtime Fremont resident. Before it was Fremont, in about 53, our family moved to the district, which was Mission San Jose. And our family began attending the Niles Congregational Church on H Street, probably about the mid-50s with some other family members. And those are where my memories begin of the church. And I attended Sunday school. We did a lot of activities at the church. And I was remember being in youth groups, and probably latter part of my high school years, I think tended to drop off. But in the meantime, many friends that are still that we made there still existed in the church going forward. And probably about 77, Ricky and I were married and had our first child, and we began in earnest going to church. And we felt we needed to give her and our son that came along later a church orientation and know something about a faith.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, we've made a lot of good friends that our kids grew up together, and we became more involved in the church. We served on boards where we took leadership roles in Christian ed, and I did worked on the property, and Ricky sang in the choir, and we were very engaged in the church. And it was amazing how many prominent people in the community were members of the Niles Congregational Church. We had people who were mayors, people that were council members, civic leaders, and it was something to look up to. And a lot of the church was made up of, we had teachers, a lot of professionals, but it had a broad array of people, and a lot of rich memories of those times. And along the way, I had a greater appreciation for our history when we came to the process of having discussion and about merging with the First Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, and Pastor Jeff and Joe brought us together to discern. It took us about a 2-year process to think about how we could be one church, a merged church, instead of two separate churches. And at one meeting, Jeff ran off a litany of accomplishments of the United Church of Christ. And one of the things he brought up was talked about in 1620, that our pilgrim forebears, they leave Europe for the New World, and their pastor, John Robinson, tells the group that God has yet more light and truth to break forward out of his holy word. And over 20 years ago, the United Church of Christ affirmed this belief in our motto that God is still speaking, that there's more truths to come out. And it's not the literal word of the Bible that we follow, but we seek those truths. And Jeff also mentioned that in 1700, the Congregationalists were the first Americans to take a stand against slavery. And that was when Samuel Sewall printed a pamphlet. In 1785, Hayes was the first African American to be ordained by a Protestant denomination. In 1839, enslaved Afro-Americans break their chains and seize control of the Amistad. It was the Congregationalists and some other Christian that organized a campaign to help the captives, and eventually the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the captives, that they were not property. In 1863, Antoinette Brown was the first woman ordained since the New Testament times as a Christian minister. What a first. And then we step forward into, I remember one of the things my grandmother had needle pointed on a picture was the Serenity Prayer, and that was someone that Reinhold Niebuhr preached a sermon on. But the practices of the UCC come from a tradition of the Protestant reformers, that we profess the authority of one God. We affirm the primacy of the scriptures, the doctrine of faith, the priesthood of all believers, and the principle of Christian freedom. And we celebrate two sacraments, baptism and the Lord's Supper. And when we merged with the Christian church, we were an ecumenical communion, meaning that they affirmed those both tenets, and we both had the right of privilege of calling a pastor from either denomination to be our pastors. And more currently, I think it was in 1972, the Golden Gate Association of the Northern California United Church of Christ was the first church to ordain an openly gay minister, and that was quite a stirring. And I think in 1975, the UCC was having our biannual meeting, and they got news that Cesar Chavez was being under attack so they sent delegates to stand in solidarity with the United Farm Workers in the Coachella Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And we supported them. In about maybe about 2002, the Niles Congregational Church became an open and affirming church. We affirmed the right of all people to have an open marriage, the same gender marriage, and that was really important to us. And one of the things I really like about the Niles Discovery Church and our predecessor is that we're part of a denomination that doesn't have a lot of dogma. Mm-hmm. So where we take positions on are on either topics or matters of great importance is not dictated to by a national body, but we wrestle and discern whether or not, how do we take a position. So when we took an open and affirming stance, when we endorsed the gay marriage, that these are things that we talk about, we study, and we as a group take a position on. It's not dictated to by a body, you will do this. And so as a result, there are some churches that lag behind the trend nationally, but they're in the majority of people, the churches are in one mind. So it's really we have
a very rich history.
Rich
history.
Yeah,
I mean, even
and so and to be called a progressive in light of all the things that we've seen and done, I think it's a positive label. because
Absolutely. It is
we're,
absolutely the correct label, definitely progressive. And I mean, the history lesson that you've given me here is just rich, rich. And progressive is the only word. And even, in what you just shared, even for me in my history as an African American, first of all, I'll touch on that. uh, these things even go back to my history, and I did not know. So thank you so much for sharing. And I will share for everybody that as an African American, not long after I joined Niles Discovery Church, I joined in with the adult Sunday school, and one of the first books that they were going through was Isabel Wilkerson's Want of Other Sons. And what a lesson for me for my own African American history. And it was just overwhelming. I read the book, I wrote a paper, I shared my experience with the group, and so that progressive is right, open and affirming is just beautiful. Right away when I saw that, I was just like, this is the place for me. And so the progressive is the right title, but what it encompasses, in my opinion, is love. It's just pure love for your fellow man, for all human. And even at Niles, though, it's not just for mankind, it's for the environment. I love all the work
yes,
that's done at Niles to protect our environment. And Mark, I have to say, I had you on the list right away to interview you, because that's the other thing I noticed when I came to Niles. You are so active. You and Ricky are involved in so many things.
thank
Now,
you.
I've never really worked with you on anything close, but I have worked with Ricky.
Yeah.
And even though I haven't worked with you, I see you moving and doing all the time. And you do a wonderful job.
Well,
So
it's I
I
think
go
there
ahead.
are there are times where we are put in positions of awkwardness that we're being challenged,
Yeah,
and sometimes that uh, I had to, uh, as much as I want to decline an offer or a request, I got to go with the flow, and because I think that's where the growth in our experience happens, is that when we uh, need to put ourselves in a new spot and see the other side, see the importance. And so I think when we years ago we used to house homeless families for a month.
mhm,
It was called Winter Relief, and it was when the proposal was first put out, it was not well received.
mhm,
And then we had to make a commitment that we had to have for a month. We had to have people come in and bring snacks, and we had to have one volunteer spend the night with the abode services person over in case something happened in the building.
mhm.
And that was a really truly growing experience to see when you sat down and we played games with the kids or talked with the adults, to see that they have the same needs, the same wants, the same desires that we had as a privileged white person.
Yes.
And it was really humbling to
Mhm.
come to that realization. And if we didn't have that opportunity to be challenged, you don't see the other side.
You don't see the other side. That is so true. So
Yeah.
true. And that's too why I have enjoyed our series this past month on
Mhm.
travel, because that kind of does the same thing. It shows you the other side, and it makes you appreciate and realize that there's so much you can do to help.
Yeah.
and as privileged. And even though I'm not white privileged, I am privileged. I mean, travel and just seeing and knowing. And actually, even when I read Isabel Wilkerson's book with the group in the
Uh-huh.
adult Sunday school, I realized that I'm African American, but I'm pretty privileged, because what they experienced in that story, I had
Yeah.
I had never seen or known anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're privileged, and um, we're definitely blessed. So uh, Mark, thank you so much. Did you have anything else you wanted to share?
Um, y- it's is a challenge sometimes when we try to do things as a church to um, to to welcome or to share the joy that we have in doing things with the community.
Mhm,
And it's hard to. I appreciate the efforts that your ministry team is doing for evangelism, and I just wish that we could attract and show people other points of view and what we do. And once it's amazing that I had a neighbor that was very adamantly against the our safe parking program. We're
mhm,
one of four churches in the city. It's working with the city of Fremont to allow vetted people to park their cars overnight in a parking lot. And I told a neighbor, and they were just, oh, that's just terrible. And then I started talking to them about, there's people that are particularly women that are in their cars. That's where they're living, and they feel safer, but they would feel even more safe if they had a place to park overnight that's well lit and
mhm.
have some restroom facilities that they can and places to wash up. And I says, and then on Monday and Wednesdays they could stay and have their use the mobile hygiene unit to take a shower, to bathe, and do a load of laundry. And I says, these people have no other uh, means to do this.
Right,
And I said, some people are just one step away from getting an apartment because they can't afford their first and last.
right,
And all of a sudden, the little light comes on this neighbor's head and goes, "Oh, that's a good thing." But I guess we just have to communicate the
yeah,
possibilities to make a change in someone's life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The communication, it's so important. And sometimes you talk and you feel like you're just talking to the wall, but there's often times where you get through, and you
Yeah.
may not even get through during that conversation, but they'll go away and think about it. And, they will come to understand what we're trying to do. So
Yeah.
we'll keep talking, we'll keep interviewing, we'll keep doing whatever we can to,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, because we are progressive.
Yes.
God bless you. Thank you so much, Mark.
Blessings to you, Veronica.
Thank you.